After half an hour or so sitting in this particular seat, it starts killing my back. So this to me is very unnecessary in a car like this. So you can independently open this rear gate, hatch thing, the glass over here. Moving into my 3 dislikes. Number 1, and this is probably one of my biggest gripes with this car, is that guys, welcome back to the Desert Road. Today, we have a 2022 Cadillac Escalade. I've been waiting for a while to get my hands on one to review it. We have it here for you today. I had it over last week with my family. We were able to take a road trip. I drove it around town. I'll give you the full in and out, inside and out. We'll take it for a drive. I'll give you all my likes, all my dislikes to help you make a better informed buying decision of whether you want something like this for your family. So without wasting too much time, let's get right into it. All right, guys, starting off, this is obviously the updated redesigned Escalade. This was the very, very hot commodity. These cars were selling for $20,000 over MSRP or more. This came out in 2021. You guys are all familiar with the updates. It does look fresher. It does look a bit more modern. You got the nice headlights. You got the LED strips right here, updated grille. The shape of the car has not changed much. It's just a refresh all around. I like the design. It's not revolutionary in any way. It's almost like somebody just took a block of car and just updated it just a bit. Nothing stands out significantly on this car, which overall to me is a good thing. There's no weird elements. It's clean, it's modern. Overall, it's a good looking design, not a revolution of an Escalade in almost any way. Walking around the car, we can see that it's sitting on these chrome 22-inch wheels. It drives fairly well. You got quite a bit of rubber here. This car, as I came to find out, has springs. It does not sit on air suspension, which to me, in a car of this size and this stature, is a big, big con. Make sure whatever you're looking at, it has the air suspension. This is how high it sits. It makes it fairly inconvenient to get in and out of the car, especially if you're hauling the family around. This car does not lower with the steel spring, so this is a big con you got to endure in a car of this nature. Walking around, this car typically comes with the chrome trim around here. On this particular vehicle, this was painted in black around the car, including the door handles right here. You can see that. Gas cap on the left side of the car. In the back, clean design. You got long LED tail lamps over here. We're gonna open up the trunk. It took me a little while to realize how to do this, but you actually open up the trunk with this badge here. Also, you can independently open this rear gate, hatch thing, the glass over here. For some reason, it's not opening. Anyways, when you press this, this does open up over here. So luckily, this works for the purpose of this video. As you can see, the third row is down over here. I mostly use these cars as 2-row with the extra trunk space. I'm always interested in the trunk space. With the third row folded down, you have quite a bit of space here. Also, keep in mind, we didn't cover this. This is the short wheelbase Escalade. And being the short wheelbase Escalade, it's a good ½ foot longer than some of its competitors, including the X7, the GLS Benz, and the full-size Range Rover. So this is not a small car, even in the short wheelbase form. If you opt for the extended Escalade, you get an additional 1.5 feet of space in the back over here. So something for you to think about, that the short version of this is still a very, very large car. And you have more than enough room here in the back, unless you need all that extra space behind the third row, which could come beneficial for you. So that's the trunk, that's the space there. The spare is underneath the car over here. As I come to find out, there's not much here in this compartment. Really nothing much going on. We're gonna close this right here, walk around the rest of the car. This particular version comes with captain's chairs in the back seat. You can see that. These chairs, the nice part is they recline, they slide forward and back, which could give even a bit extra room in the back. So nice setup, nice stitching here, piping along these seats. Now I'm gonna walk around, show you guys some of the interior door panels. All right, before we jump into the car for a drive, let me just talk about a couple other things on the door. You have your memory seats here, standard mirror controls. Your heated and cooled seats are over here on the door. The interesting part is they split up the heating function. So you can either have the full seat or just the backrest in 3 different settings. Quite interesting. I haven't really seen that on other cars. Again, this being a more base trim, one of the biggest surprises to me in these seats right here, although they look fairly good, the lumbar support does not move up and down. It's just locked in one position. And as I came to find out on a longer trip, after half an hour or so sitting in this particular seat, it starts killing my back. So make sure that with this setup, you guys can drive long distances because again, a car like this is made for something like that. Now, let me jump into the driver's seat and show you some of the other features and my likes and dislikes around this car. I'm gonna jump in here. Again, you kind of, have to jump in the step to get into the car. You get into here. Jumping into the driver's seat, you can see this new display. Many manufacturers have been going to this elongated display over here. Overall, it works well. It's like a display inside of a display. You have a touch screen right here. You can control a couple things. The heads-up display. You got this virtual AR camera that could be enabled, and then all your trip information. Here, obviously, the rest of the infotainment. You can set up your CarPlay and whatnot over here on this side. The heads-up display, it's nice, it's fine, it works good, it shows you the speed limit as well. So to start off with some of my gripes is overall build quality of this car. Yes, it's an Escalade, it's 6 figures, but some of the things still feel very GM, very cheap. Some of the plastics right here, this shift knob right here, some of these lower plastics, even this pseudo leather, whatever they put on here, it feels all right to the touch, but it doesn't really scream premium to me in any way. Some of the German manufacturers, of course, do this up much better. Sitting in here, the position is all right. You see the visibility is quite great, but you never know with the way the hood is, how far the hood extends out. So it does give you, because of the way how high the car sits, kind of this weird seating / car position that you never fully know what the front is doing. Steering wheel is okay. I'm not the biggest fan of the wood, especially the wood inside the steering wheel mixed with the chrome over here. You have the paddle shifters here. Keep in mind, in order to use the paddle shifters, you got to throw the car into the low gear for that to enable. Otherwise, they don't work. One of my gripes as well. One of the cool features I found in here, so you see some of these speakers inside the seats. What this car has is actually it enhances your conversation with the passengers. So there's several settings here for that. So through the use of microphones and speakers, you can hear all the passengers in the car a little bit better, which is a cool feature when you want to have a nice, quiet conversation with any of your passengers in the car. So pretty cool. I like the AC controls. I like the fact they didn't bury them into the screen. You have all your AC controls left, right, where, just very straightforward, easy to access. Every manufacturer should not mess with that and leave them as is without enabling it into the infotainment center. Outside of that, it's fairly simple. Everything's simple to use. I have no other major gripes on here. It's got the big panoramic roof right here that you can close fully. Black, nice black dark headliner. No other major complaints on here. The stereo system, it's the brand they use, AKG, whatever Cadillac uses, is not the greatest. I don't know if there's levels above that. It's very, very inadequate, very flat, almost no bass. So if stereo systems matter to you, make sure to check out how this one is. Even the Revel stereo I had in my Aviator was leaps and bounds better than this one. Now, we covered basically everything inside this interior. We're gonna take this puppy on a drive now and give you my full driving impressions. Let's go. All right, we're in the driver's seat. My favorite part of almost any car review, we're gonna talk about how this drives. My first complaint, so let me talk about the power numbers here. 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque. That sounds good, right? Well, look, they didn't update this at all since the previous generation. In fact, they made the car heavier. What does that mean? That means it's the same engine in a heavier car, so it goes even slower than the previous generation. To me, that's just lazy thinking. It's not updating the product, and it's almost like, what was GM thinking doing something like that? You know, in the latest and greatest Escalade, I would have either liked to see a little bit of weight reduction or a power bump. Because of this, and I have driven the previous Escalades, this one feels slower and is more lethargic. It has almost enough power in almost situation. I'm not saying it doesn't have adequate power for passing, but for a 6.2 liter gas guzzling V8, it's almost like it doesn't have enough oomph, whether you're going off the line or driving around town. So I wish they would have made an improvement. So to me, that is a big con. Now, driving this, honestly, it feels like I'm just wafting in a little bit of cotton candy. Like, I get almost no feeling from the road at all. It's just, you're just kind of sitting on a big cushiony block and it's wafting down the road. It has its pros, especially on a road trip or on long, smooth stretches of road. But whether this car is sitting driving at 25 miles per hour or 65 miles per hour, it feels almost identical. And you have absolutely almost no sense of what's happening to the wheels underneath the car. I understand a lot of people might even like that feeling, that very kind of disconnected, isolated feel from the car. I prefer a much more connected driving experience, at least to know what's going on underneath the car. Again, it's good in certain situations, but for day-to-day living with something like this, or unless you're a passenger in this car, I prefer not to be the driver of a car like this. You feel the weight of the car, you feel the size of the car. It doesn't do anything absolutely to hide its heft. You do know its presence on the road, and again, that is a pro. Some people like big, bulky, heavy feeling vehicles. But to me, again, it just leaves something to be desired, especially if you enjoy driving. The brakes are also not the best feature on here. They feel very squishy. You do got to give enough distance when you're braking. So do be careful. I don't know if it's because the life of these brakes or what, but overall, it takes quite a bit of planning even and pushing, digging your heel and toes into this pedal to make sure you stop on time. So again, it doesn't provide me with the greatest sense of safety when I'm driving this around town. The heads-up display is good. As I mentioned, the stereo does a very adequate job. Also, if you live in a hot climate, you do have to have this pretty turned up to cool the vehicle adequately. The AC, I'd rate it probably like a 6 out of 10. It's far from the best cars I've been in, but it gets the job done. I don't know if you can hear it over the microphone, but there is also quite a bit of vent noise coming from this AC, and it's not even on full blast over here. Again, I like the fact that the controls are integrated right there, makes it nice. Also, let's cover some of my other gripes while we're inside the car. One of them is this shift knob stalk that Cadillac put back over here. I almost wish they would have just left it where it was on the steering column or gave you buttons to open this space up. You'd have more storage space. It just wouldn't clutter up this area, which is already burdened with extra buttons. So this to me is very unnecessary in a car like this. Additionally, they hid some very needed buttons right behind there. So the start, stop, the hold, and the lane assist, lane keep assist back there. So it's almost like you got to dig around back there to find some of those buttons behind the shift stalk over here. So they could easily get rid of this, update this. It's not needed in a car like this. All right, my other gripe is it's got this LED strip right here embedded into the steering wheel that has a green light here. something to do with Super Cruise when you enable that. I didn't play with the technology in here too much, but when you have your hand resting on the wheel right here, I don't like this texture or how slippery it kind of makes grabbing onto the wheel here. Again, a minor gripe. I don't know why Cadillac needed to embed that into here. Just leave it on the screen, leave it off the steering wheel. The steering wheel could have been improved as well. Now, let's discuss a little bit about highway cruising in here. This is where this car shines. It does really, really well. It's stable. It's overall one of the quietest cars I've been in on a higher speed cruise. Again, I'd be fairly satisfied with this as the highway cruiser outside of the seat comfort. For some reason, about a half an hour in, my lower back would tremendously start hurting in this seat back because of the curvature of this seat. So again, if you were to buy this, it doesn't have the proper lumbar seat support adjustment like this does, make sure you drive this for longer than 15 minutes to be comfortable. But my bigger gripe against some of the other competitors is this doesn't have massaging seats. So in a car like this that you're taking on an extended trip, road trip, you know, where it's made to shine with no massaging seats, a big whammy to me. All right, moving into our 3 likes and 3 dislikes. For the 3 likes, number 1, I like how this cruises on the highway. Outside of the seat issue, this is a fantastic highway cruiser. This is where it's born to shine, whether you're by yourself or hauling clients, family, or whatever else in this car. So overall, fantastic. It has the dual pane windows. Just it rides very well on the highway. Number 2 like is the space inside of this car. With a family, with 2 children, more children, if you have that 3rd row down, it gives you definitely more than enough room to haul 2 kids and all the luggage you can possibly think of. And this is in the short wheelbase version. And my number 3 like, this GM car, this Cadillac Escalade, has almost 40,000 miles on here. It held up fairly well. Yes, we're not at 100,000 miles, but overall, there's not a single rattle or squeak I have come to observe having driven this for over a week. So overall, build quality in here outside of the actual materials used that I have a gripe with is overall fairly solid. Moving into my 3 dislikes. Number 1, and this is probably one of my biggest gripes with this car, is that the power and the engine got unchanged from the previous generation that went on for over 10 years. GM got really sloppy and lazy in updating this car. They kept the same power, they upped the weight of this car, so it feels sluggish to me. For a V8 engine and for something this size, I would like to see just a bit more out of it for sure. All right, my second dislike is the seat comfort in this car. I don't like the lack of lumbar support. There is no massage seating function. And overall, after driving this for a week, I still haven't ultimately found a great driving position in this car. So even though this is made to fit a lot of bodies and a lot of heights and weights, to me, it's not the ultimate ergonomics in a car, especially of this size. And my third dislike is just the general ride quality of this car. While it is overall fairly smooth, it does ride on springs, not air suspension. I just don't like the way it kind of wafts down the road and provides almost no feedback to you whatsoever. It is fairly easy to drive for a car this size, but it doesn't hide its size or weight when you drive it. You are aware that this is a big car. Whether you're parking this, whether you're turning into a plaza, it requires a bit of hand-over-hand movement to get this to where you want to go. So overall, it is not my preferred ride type, especially for a car of this size. All right, guys, wrapping this up. Overall, this is a fairly solid family mover, especially if you have a larger family. If you need a bigger car, it gets the job done. On the front of driving dynamics, it is just not my preferred car of choice. I've been in many of its competitors, including the German cars. I like the X7. I really like the GLS Mercedes. This to me would probably be towards the bottom of the list for a larger car of this nature to buy. It gets the job done, but honestly, I don't find myself enjoying being in here much at all. I've owned the Lincoln Aviator. I've somewhat enjoyed that car. Again, it wasn't my preferred choice of transport as well. They're fine vehicles. It does have a class of buyer that really enjoys them. To me, it's just not my preferred vehicle of choice. And again, if you've been following the rule of cars at all, you know how well you can buy one of these now. It has about 40,000 miles and a 2022. You can pick this up for around $65,000 to $70,000, about $30,000 off from when it was new. If you have a need for a car this size, check it out. It might become your favorite due to its pros and cons. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Desert Road.